wants to start? Are you ready? All right, so we have to have more for the Sewerage Water Board now for the executive what a structure of leadership can the Sewerage Water Board operate without a representative?
Well, I think that's the question we want asked. In my experience on being the council this last term and this current term, the question we're going to pose, and I'll likely be in the form of the new board commissioning someone to actually review the position itself, is do we need a separate executive director? Could we potentially consolidate the general superintendent into an executive director position? It's $500,000 of ratepayer money. And I think the question we all have is, what does the executive director actually do? Many of the things you assume an executive director does, like oversight of construction and maintenance, coordinating with crews, managing budgets, those are all things the general superintendent does. So I think that when you're talking about ratepayers' dollars, I think the new board, and if you don't know, on August 1st, when the bill goes into effect, we will be put in a position to, at the next council meeting, adopt the new board. That process is already beginning. The mayor's already looking at who she wants to put in that position. But there's going to be a new day at Sewerage Water Board with the powers that are invested in the city council on August 1st. And what you'll see today in this meeting is today you will see the introduction of a significant ordinance that deals with some of the powers of Sewerage Water Board, as well as they'll be over the next week, we'll reveal some motions that are also being done to coordinate operations. But as far as the executive director, the question to be posed to the new board is this a redundant position? Because it's a very expensive redundant position. As an appointed individual who is essentially the head of a department for the city of New Orleans, the salary and the benefits provided to our executive director of Sewerage Water Board dwarf every department head in the state of Louisiana, including state department heads, over things like the Department of Transportation. So the concern is with Sewerage Water Board that there needs to be an evaluation of whether this position is necessary at all, because in retrospect, it might be a better savings, like I said, to consolidate the general superintendent and executive director into one position, and that position should really report to the head of DPW, who should be overseeing all sewage and water operations as well as road operations.
So what is Frank Henry doing from your perspective?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, when you look at our meetings, when it comes to every technical question that we ask, he turns to the left or right and asks Caitlin, what's the answer? So when it comes to the questions that we ask of Sewerage and Water Board, the person who answers the vast majority of the questions is Caitlin, and if she's not directly answering it, she's providing the answers to Randy to give to us. That seems like a very expensive handoff.
Were you able to look at the reports that you guys received this morning about the recent flooding events?
We have not reviewed those. Well, I have not reviewed them as yet because they're new, but we will be reviewing them at the appropriate time.
What are you hoping to see?
I'm hoping to see there were lessons learned over the course of several flooding events we've had recently. As you know, we had the first issue that happened over 2 months ago where we had the tripping of the different power stations that dealt with the pumps. As we reiterated yesterday in our joint meeting, there are significant concerns because the tripping of power is wholly a Sewage and Water Board / manufacturing issue. The megahertz wattage delivery system is published on Entergy's website. Every commercial operator of any facility in the city is aware of the range of power in that window that's offered to different companies. They all accommodate for that. The other thing that was reiterated yesterday in the meeting was that the fact that there is no period to process when the surge happens to keep the pumps online is unique to Sewage and Water Board. Sewage and Water Board has an instant trip where if there is a change in the wattage, the trip flips like in your house. That is not normal. On the Entergy's website, it tells you that there needs to be a timing issue of possibly a second or 2 seconds to make sure the interruption is actually an interruption. The instant trip is not only unusual, it's not recommended. And as Sewage and Water Board revealed yesterday, that's something that they don't know why it's there. And the question we posed to them that they could not answer was that setup of how the pumps were done with the power and the wattage, was that at Sewage and Water Board's request, or was that manufacturer error? If it's manufacturer error, we as the city, the Sewerage and Water Board, should be pursuing getting compensated by the manufacturer for mistaken installation. But the fact 2 months later they still haven't identified who made the mistake is problematic and raises concerns.
With a third party consulting firm, I'm assuming that's going to figure out if payment should be asked.
I think that decision as to who that firm would be done by the new board. But that the recommendation that the council is going to push, that recommendation will likely be in the form of a resolution when that new board comes up, will be to tell them to go hire a third party firm to do that.
Councilman, I hope to get your reaction about her yesterday, calling your name out, suggesting you did something wrong, and suggesting that you should possibly lose your law license.
My response to the press conference yesterday is fairly simple, which is that the elected officials of the city of New Orleans are focused on doing the city's business. We don't have time to respond to the antics and the accusations, the wild accusations made by the governor, and we look forward to a day when he gets back to focusing on doing the work that's before him, whether it be data centers, whether it be carbon sequestration. The people of the state have real problems, and pursuing vendettas is beneath all of our offices, and we hope someday he'll get back to working with us.
I know the Water Board will keep questions.
New board members, I know in the past you stated you wanted more oversight from the city council and more meetings. Would the new Sewerage and Water Board have more meetings with the city council?
Mostly what I've been focused on, the Sewerage and Water Board itself does not meet in the council chambers, and for years they did. One of the things that we're looking at doing is putting a requirement in place that the new board actually meet in the council chambers at least quarterly so that residents can actually interact with them. We found way back years ago when we were fighting over the billing process was that there was a complete disconnect between customers who were receiving bills that were thousands upon thousands of dollars off, and the Sewerage and Water Board saying nothing's wrong, nothing to see here. And when you dug into it, the fact they meet in a boardroom that is removed from citizens being involved, they were relying upon Sewerage and Water Board staff to tell them how things are going. I think the Sewerage and Water Board, at least quarterly, needs to be back in these chambers where residents, where ratepayers can actually interact with them, where they can get a real-time feedback on how the Sewerage and Water Board is actually performing. So as far as the additional oversight, right now, Sewerage and Water Board, under the previous law, their interaction with the city council was limited and required to after a rain flood event where flooding happened or in advance of hurricane season. We're going to make those requirements of them attending our committee meetings, both utilities, climate, and public works, much more robust. We're basically, if we request you to be here, you need to be here. You need to answer our questions. Because as you've seen from all our actions thus far, I think they still haven't gotten the memo that the people of New Orleans want transparent, easily understood responses to basic questions. What I described earlier about the tripping situation with the pumps and who was responsible, to date, they still won't take responsibility for it. They're still saying, well, we're still investigating. And I will tell you, the fact that every time we point out a deficiency, they said they would take it under advisement or look into that advice. It is not the council's job to do the Sewerage and Water Board's job. And if they thought that placating us by saying such pedantic comments like, that's a good idea, made them look good, in my opinion, made them look worse, because the things that we were suggesting were common sense. And if they can't operate independently to discover common sense solutions, that does not inspire confidence.